Jomo, and I am grateful to meet you today again. And today we are looking at science and technology. We are going to talk about living things and non-living things. So I urge you to have your pen, also have your notebook, so that you may put on, at least you may put down something on what we are going to discuss. Thank you. Welcome. Okay. We are going to talk about science and technology, and our strand is living things. Living things. Our substrand is living things and non-living things. Okay, learners, I want you to understand the basic. This is a grade 4 lesson, and about living things, I know you might have been taught in your various classes, and I'm happy today to introduce to you this strand living things, and let us know what a living thing is. What is living things? You may be asked to give the meaning of a living thing, and you need to understand that a living thing, this is anything that has life, in them, That is what we call a living thing. And when we talk of a living thing, you need to understand that living things, you are a good example of a living thing because you have got life. So anything that has life in it, that is a living thing. Now, we may be asked also to give the meaning of non-living things. What are non-living things? Non-living things, these are things that do not have life in them. Those are what we call non-living things. Non-living things simply means that these things, they do not have the power to live. They do not have the power to breathe. They cannot move. So that is why they are called non-living things. And now you will realize that non-living things, they are always within us. Like, for example, the house that we are living in, we have the mountain, we have the stones, we have the rivers, and then we have the buildings. Those are what we call non-living things. So some of the examples of non-living things, as displayed. In addition, we also have the stones. We have the chairs. You can also check in your houses. We also have tables. We have the spoons. These are some of the non-living things that we have within us. And also, you can also look at some of the houses, all buildings that you can see around you. They are what we call non-living things. So non-living things, they are things that do not have life in them. They cannot breathe, they cannot eat, they cannot move, they cannot remove waste. And that is why we call them non-living things. If we turn back to our first point, which was what is a living thing? A living thing. This is anything that has life in them. Anything that it has got life in them, like for example, we have human being. We have human being as a good example. Human beings. These are things that they always have life in them. They are able to walk. They are able to remove waste. They are able to change to various environments. And so, when you are asked to give the meaning of a living thing, you should be able to give. Good. And now, we want to move to our next part. After now knowing what a living thing is, you have known what non-living things and with their examples. Now, we are now moving to another step about the living things. Okay. Living things, they are categorized into various categories. Like for example, living things, they are placed into categories. They have what makes them to be called living things, and also non-living things, they have what makes them to be called non-living things. Like for example, we have the features that makes plants and animals, the features that makes plants and animals living things are characteristics. These are what we call characteristics. So characteristics, these are just some features. They are just features that makes plants and animals. And you know, plants and animals, they are our core value in this strand, whereby we are going to look deep into it. So the features that makes them to be called living things, these are what we call characteristics. And so characteristics of living things. Now we now move to characteristics of living things. Characteristics of living things. These are they can shift from one place to another. Then another one is that they can die. As long as they have life in them, it means that they can die. They can die. So our second characteristic is that they can die. Another characteristic is that they can remove. They can remove waste. Living things, they can remove waste. You can have, like for example, a cow. You can have a cow, and then after a cow has eaten, after a cow is satisfied with the its meal, you will realize that it removes waste. Also, human beings, they remove waste. Remember the other time we looked at the breathing human digestive system, And we saw how human beings remove waste. And thus, when we talk of living things removing waste, it means that they normally release themselves when they are heavy burdened. And then another one is that they can change. Living things, they can change from different environment. Living things, they can change. If you move to any different place, if the temperature of different place, it becomes hot, you will see human beings reacting. Also the cows, they will be reacting. Like if we have a lot of sun, a lot of sunshine, you will find the animals looking for shelters to shelter themselves. You will have human beings also looking for where to hide themselves, because of the sunshine. So they can change from different environment. We also have another characteristics that they reproduce. This one begins from human beings, cows, cat, elephant, lion. They reproduce, which means they have got young ones. These living things, they have young ones. They reproduce. You will always see a cow with a calf, which means that they can reproduce. They can give rise to young one. Reproduce simply means giving rise to young ones. So living things, they always give rise to young ones. They always have the young ones with them. Okay, this one brings us to another characteristics of living things. But we say living things as long as they can move, they can die, they remove waste, they can change from different environment, they reproduce. You should also know that they can feed. Living things, they have the ability to feed themselves. Like for example, you will find a cow eating grass. You will also find human beings eating various food. So which means these living things, they are able to feed. Remember, we are live on KUTV, Kenya's premier educational television. And so, as we are moving on, let us now look at the characteristics of different. I told you plants and animals, they are our core values in this lesson. So we have to look at characteristics of plants. Remember, plants, they are living things. And if they are living things, it means that they have got life in them. And if they have life in them, as we have been looking at the different features of living things, you will realize that plants and animals, they share the same characteristics of plants. They share the same characteristics with animals. They share the same characteristics when we talk about general features of living things. And so we are just going to redo what we have been doing. And this one turns us to another characteristics that living things or plants, plants, they can move. Plants, they can move. How can plant move? You will realize that although they do not have legs to move, but you will realize that whenever an animal or human being passes nearby it, they are able to shift this plant from one place to another. And that is why we say plants can move. These plants, they can also die. They can die. Plants, they can die. And these plants, you should know that as far as they will be growing due to rain, due to sunlight, but remember, they have the ability to die. They have the ability to die. Most of the time we'll go to the farm and realize that your plants which were standing well, like for example, let me take an example of a tree. It was standing very healthy, but now due to lack of enough things that can facilitate it to grow, you will realize that the plant will die. So when it dies, some of them, they can remain standing, and some of them, they are likely to fall on the ground. And that is why, and when they fall on the ground, you will realize that they wither, they die. So living things, they can die. They reproduce. They reproduce. Look at a banana plant. Banana plant. When you look at the banana, when you look at banana plant, you will realize that this banana, it has got the ability to reproduce. The banana has got the ability to reproduce. And this one, you will realize when you see such a fruit coming out on a banana. This one simply tells you that a banana has the ability to reproduce. A banana has got the ability to reproduce. Banana has got the ability to reproduce. This is a banana plant. A banana plant. It has got the ability to reproduce. You can also look at the maize plant. Maize plant, whenever you see it, you will also realize that it has got the ability. It has got the ability to reproduce. A maize plant has got the ability to reproduce. And thus, if we say this is a maize plant, so all of these one, they have got the ability. Plants have got ability to reproduce. So when we talk of reproduction in plants, we are looking at the fruits that these plants are giving us. We are looking at what benefit can we get from the plant as far as it is a living thing. Plants also, they feed. They can feed. They can feed. We have this type of a plant whereby its survival is related to how it feeds. We have this type of a plant whereby this plant, you will realize that inside here we can have something like it can trap an insect. It can trap an insect inside here. It can trap various insects, and this is how this plant survives. So when you hear your teacher saying that plants can feed, It means that we have the plants that have got ability to feed. They have got ability to trap the insect, to trap various things for survival. So without this plant cannot survive because it has got the potential to feed. And number two, we also have a plant that is able to trap some nutrients from the soil. It can trap some things in the soil. We call them the nutrients. Like for example, if you put your manure here, you will realize that this plant, for it to survive healthy, it will take in the manure for survival. Without this manure, you will realize that maybe your plant will be unhealthy if you do not treat it well. And so when you hear us saying that plants can feed, so know that they have got the ability to feed. Okay. We also have plants that they can change. Plants can change. Plants can change in various environment. In various environment. A plant can change. Like for example, we have a certain plant whereby if you go and look at it, this plant behaves differently. This plant, when you touch on it, you will realize that it folds itself. This plant folds itself. And that's why we say plants, they can change in various environments. You go to it, it is this way, but when you touch on it, it folds itself. And that is why we say plants, they can change themselves in various environments. This one brings us to another aspect. Let us look at something else on plants. Let us see different plants. Like for example, I want to draw various pictures. This is a picture of a plant. This is a picture of a plant. And then so this plant, you will realize that as the time goes by, you will realize that this plant is growing very fast. Is growing very fast. This one tells you that plants, they can grow. This one means that they can grow. They have got the ability to grow. They have got the ability to grow. As far as it started as young as you can see, but during some time, you will find it has grown very big. So plants, they have got the ability to grow. Now, as we look at plants, let us see how can we take care. How can we take care of plants? How do we take care of plants? Plants, they grow, but they need to be taken care of. Plants, they need special attention. Like for example, plants, you need to water them. You need to water them. If you water your plant, it will grow healthy. Number two, you need to weed. Weeding helps to remove unwanted plants, and then you remain with your plants. Number three, you need to actually fence them. Fencing. You need to fence them. As you are fencing them, you are protecting the plants from any disruption of either animals or human beings. So they need special attention. And that is how we can take care of plants. And another one, you can add their manure. You can add manure. If you add manure on a plant, like I showed you earlier, this is a plant, and you need to add their manure. You can put there your manure very well, and then you cover it with a light soil. Cover it with a light soil. This one, it will help this plant to grow healthy. It will help this plant to grow without any difficulties. And that is how we can take care of plants. Let us now look at animals as living things. Let's look at animals as living things. Animals as living things. In animals, we look at the characteristics. Look at the characteristics of animals. As I told you, when we were looking at the characteristics of living things, they are just similar to the characteristics of animals, because animals are parts of living things. And so characteristics number one is they can grow. They can grow. They can grow. Like, for example, if this is your animal, which is called a cat, and then you will realize that with the time, this cat, it will grow very fast. And that is why we say that as you are a child right now, in the future you will realize that you are growing, you are no longer a child. And that is what happens to animals. They always grow. They always grow. Number two, they feed. They feed. Animals, they have the ability to feed. As you can see, we have different animals there. Those are cattle. They are feeding. They are able to feed. They have got mouth that helps them to feed. They do not feed like a plant, but for them they have got mouth. We also have human beings which have also the same characteristics, that they are able to feed. Another one, they can move. They can move. Animals can move from one place to another. As you can see, I am also able to move. Where I am standing, I am also able to move. As I move, you will realize that there are different movements. Like we have those animals that they can run, they can crawl, as you can see. They can fly like bats. We have those that they can hop. Like you can see a kangaroo. A kangaroo can hop. A snake can crawl. And that is why we say animals, as living things, they have got the ability to move. And then another one, they can reproduce. They can reproduce. Animals can reproduce. As you can see, we have a goat with its young one. And the goat, you will realize that it is very comfortable where it is standing, because it is aware that that which I'm standing with, it is mine. And as you can see, one of it is small and another one is big. And that is why we say this one, animals, they have the ability to reproduce. They have got the ability to reproduce. They can also die. They can also die. As far as animals, they reproduce, they move, they feed, they grow. They have got the ability to die, especially when there is hunger, when they are infected with various diseases. As you can see, they can die. And thus, you need to understand that animals, anything, any living thing has got the ability to die. And this one turns us to another aspect. How do we care? How do we care? How do we care for animals? Number one, feeding. Animals, we can care for them by feeding, giving them water, treating them, we can also clean their habitats. Now, this one brings us to an end of our lesson of today. Remember that you are watching us on KUTV, Kenya's premier educational television. Welcome once again, and always watch KUTV if you want to get more about our various lessons. Thank you so much for listening. You can now, if you have any question, you can just bring it up. I will be answering them in due course. Meanwhile, I know that you have enjoyed the lesson, and I am happy for you. I am happy for those that they have been following the lesson. KUTV, Kenya's premier educational television, is with us here, and we are able to learn more and more and more. Thank you so much as we turn to various questions in various categories under living things and non-living things.